A story in the Talmud, in Tractate Megillah, and the Talmud tells us like this. There was a king named Talmai, a Greek king, and this king Talmai, he decided that he wanted to be able to study the Torah. The problem was, at that time the Torah was only available in Hebrew, and he didn't understand Hebrew. He wanted to force someone to translate the Torah for him, but he was afraid that if the person is only doing it against his will, he might go and not translate it accurately. If there's something which, I don't know, Talmai might take offense to, or something, the guy might go and change the translation. So he wants it to be an accurate translation. He doesn't know what to do. So he comes up with a plan. He books a hotel. He's got 70 rooms, gets 70 rabbis, takes away their cell phones so that there's no communicating with each other. And I tried telling this to second graders this week, and they reminded me there were no cell phones back then. But anyway, he goes and he puts them in 70 different rooms, makes sure there's no communication, gives each one of them a copy of the Hebrew Chumash and says, I want a translation in Greek. Then he'll be able to compare and see if anyone is trying to cheat and do something that's not accurate, because he'll be able to compare the different translations. Says the Talmud what happened. So the first rabbi is sitting there in the room, and he starts to write, Beraishis, in the beginning, Bara Elokim, created Hashem, Esa Shamayim, the heavens, Ve'esa Aretz, and the earth. So he writes, he looks at what he wrote. In the beginning created Hashem, the heavens and the earth. He's like, what if the way that Talmai reads it is that there's this power called in the beginning, Beraishis, and Beraishis bara Elokim. This power called in the beginning created Hashem. In the beginning created Hashem, the heavens and the earth. Right? What if he reads that and he starts to think that the world wasn't created by Hashem? The world was created by in the beginning. The power called in the beginning created Hashem. So he's like, what should I do? Maybe I could flip it. I could write, Hashem created in the beginning, the heaven and the earth, and then you don't have any problems. I'll just write it that way. Elokim bar Beraishis. God created in the beginning the heaven and the earth. He says, but what about everyone else? I'm going to get busted, because he's going to see that my translation doesn't compare with everyone else's translation. I'm just going to do it. So he goes, he does it, and sure enough, the exact same thing happened in every single room. Every single rabbi chose to change the translation. Talmud tells us there were 15 changes that they made. I think it's 15 in total. And it tells us what the 15 are, but this is the first change that was made. Instead of writing, in the beginning created Hashem, the heaven and the earth, they wrote, God created, Hashem created, in the beginning, the heaven and the earth. Okay, so years ago, I saw in a sefer, I don't remember anymore the name, that he asked the following question. Sounds good. Sounds like the rabbis made a good change. What was Hashem thinking? Why did Hashem write, in the beginning created Hashem? Right? Why didn't Hashem write it that way? Hashem created in the beginning. That way you won't have any problem. Nobody will go and read the Torah and think to himself, ooh, look at that. Even in the Torah itself, it admits that there's a power called in the beginning. Right? We don't need anybody to do that. Write it in the most precise way possible. Why didn't Hashem come up with that idea? So this suggestion, the answer that he suggests is a little bit yeshivish, lumdish, I don't know how to say that in English, convoluted. The answer is like this, that there's the ability when you do an action to put a certain halacha, to put a limitation on your action. What do I mean to say? A guy goes over to a woman, gives her a ring, and says, Harei at mikudeshes li b'tabazo. Behold, you are married to me with this ring that I gave you. That action creates marriage. They're now a married couple. What happens, though, if he puts a condition on that? He says, right now I'm marrying you with this ring on condition that every single Thursday night you serve me potato kugel. You don't serve me potato kugel every Thursday night for the next year. The action that I just gave you of giving a ring was not given to you for the purpose of marriage. So the Talmud says you could do that. You could put a condition on your actions. You could sell somebody something on condition that they'll fulfill a certain condition, or on condition that it'll rain next Tuesday. Whatever the case may be, you can put conditions on your actions. Even though if we just look at the actual action itself, we see a man giving a woman a ring, saying the words, you are married to me, but he also is putting a limitation on it. And he's saying that only if you go and you fulfill this condition. Okay. Now, there's something called mishpatei atnai. Mishpatei atnai means that there are certain ways that you have to formulate the condition. And if you don't formulate it following the exact formula, then it doesn't work. One of these rules are that it's a little bit counterintuitive, but you can't say, you're married to me, on condition that you do the following. You have to say, first the condition, then the action. On condition that you make me potato kugel, then you're going to be married to me. You have to say the condition first. Okay, says the Talmud, Beraishis is what? Bishvil Yisrael shenikaraishis. Hashem created the world for the Jewish people. Hashem, Tnai Hisna Kadosh Baruch Hu B'Yisrael. Hashem made a condition when He created the world. If the Jewish people in 2000 2,448 years, 2,440 years, are going to accept the Torah, then this world is going to continue to exist. However, if they leave Egypt, I offer them the Torah. They don't say Nasa v'Nishma, but they say, nah, not for us. Hashem says, that's it. The whole world is going to cease to exist. I'm only creating the world on condition that the Jews are going to accept the Torah. So that means that there was a condition. The world was created, but with a condition. So what has to come first? First the condition, then the action. So Beraishis, on condition that the Jews who are called Beraishis accept the Torah, only then Bara Elokim. Only then Hashem created the world. So okay, it's what we'd call a cute answer, but there's got to be something more. So I always liked it because it was cute. I appreciated the ingenuousness of the answer, but I always wanted to know what's a better answer to this question. So then later I saw Rav Shimshon Pincus ask the question. And Rav Shimshon Pincus in his Sefer Tiferes Torah, he writes like this. He has the exact same question. It sounds good. Why not write it? Hashem created in the beginning. Why write in the beginning Hashem created? So he says the following answer. He says that, I'll ask you another question. He says, we find in the Sfarim talk about the idea of Emunah Pshuta. Emunah Pshuta means just having a simple belief in Hashem. You don't have to go and dig deep and just believe. Just believe. So he says, just believe? I mean, the pasuk says, Pesi Yamin L'chol Davar. A fool believes anything. You can't just believe, you gotta. So he says, no, there's two types of belief. He says, of course, there's just simple belief, and then there's sometimes, and you could dig deep and you could grow in your belief in Hashem and understanding how Hashem runs the world, of course. He says, but then sometimes you have these silly questions. He says, a person sits there and you have these philosophy classes, and he says, maybe, even though I see the star, but maybe the star is really me, and I'm really the star, and even though it looks like the star is there, I mean, he says all types of silly questions. He says that's not what you're supposed to do. Don't start. Just look in the world, right? You look at the world, you see that Hashem created the world. This is a famous story that's told about someone that had a gorgeous model of the Earth and the solar system, and he has a friend who's an atheist, and he looks at it and he's all impressed with the model, and he says, like, oh, that's this, back in the day before you could just buy something on Amazon.com. He says, like, how'd you get it? Where'd you get it from? That's unbelievable. And he looks at him and he says, what's your question? It just is. And he's like, no, don't play games with me. Where'd it come from? And he's like, it just is. And no one made it. It just is. He's like, oh, you're being so annoying. Why don't you? So he looks at him and he says, okay, so my model over here of the world, that you're not willing to believe that it just is. Obviously somebody made it. But the actual world itself, that you're willing to believe that it just is. There was no creator. Who's the fool? Right? He says, you look at the world, you got to believe that there's a God who created the world. So he says like this. He says, when it comes to Jews, so then our Aleph, the very beginning is we believe that there's a Hashem. Hashem created the world. He says, if somebody comes and they say, wow, look at the Kollel building, such a beautiful building. How was it created? So you say, okay, well listen, first let me explain to you that it didn't just fall from the heavens. There was an architect, and there was a contractor, and there was a builder. Now, I'll tell you how the builder built it. Like, yeah, obviously, right? You don't have to tell me that there was a builder. I mean, it's a building. It was, right? You're insulting the guy's intelligence by having to tell him that there was a builder who built it. So we believe in Hashem. So you don't have to tell us. Listen, number one, first word of the Torah, Aleph, Elokim. There was a Hashem. Hashem created the world. That's obvious. Of course we believe that. Right? Jews believe Hashem created the world. Right? What's the only question? The question is how he created the world. What came first? What came second? What was the order? So that's why, for us, it's enough to say, Beraishis, in the beginning, I'll tell you what Hashem created. In the beginning, created Hashem the heaven, he created the earth. It was mixed up, it was empty, then there was light, and there was darkness, day one, day two, day three, whatever. So all that you need to do is start, right? But the fact that Hashem created the world is a given, so it doesn't have to be spelled out. However, for Talmai HaMelech, and for a non-Jew who's going to be reading the Greek translation, they need to be told, first things first, Elokim, there's a God. Now I'll tell you what it is that he created. So that's why first, the way that Hashem wrote it, it starts with Beraishis-By Elokim, because we don't need to waste your time telling you. It's a given, it's an obvious that Hashem is the one that created the world. However, for the people that were reading the Greek translation, they needed to be told the opposite. They needed to be told first, there's a creator, he created the world, and only afterwards I'll tell you what it is that he created. Thank you so much for coming, and if anyone needs to daven Maariv,